Hey everyone, it's Mason and you're listening to Herb Rally. This episode is another edition of the Herbalist Hour, and this time I'm joined by Anna Claire Lotti and Sondra Hamilton. So this June, they're leading an incredible journey to Peru, and we chat all about it in this conversation. We also find out about how they met, Peruvian plants, sacred Mapacho, what they love about being an herbalist, and a whole lot more. So huge thanks to Anna Claire and Sondra for joining me on the show. And also, before we get into the show, I'd love to thank our presenting sponsor, and that is, of course, Oshala Farm. If you're looking to purchase U.S.-grown, organically grown, high-quality herbs, look no further than Oshala Farm at oshalafarm.com. So I've been friends with the owners and farmers, Elise and Jeff Higley, for a long time now. I've visited their farm many a time, so I see how vibrant and beautiful it is. Definitely recommend checking it out if you're in the area. You can learn more about Oshala Farm, as I said, at oshalafarm.com. They grow and sell over 80 medicinal plant species, and they also have like elixirs, fire cider, hydrosols that they make right there on the farm, and a whole lot more. So when you support Oshala Farm by purchasing their products, you're also helping support Herb Rally. So big thanks for that. Also, big thanks got to go to our Herb Rally Schoolhouse members. You know who you are. Thank you so much for your support. We really could not do this without you. If you'd like to learn more about the Herb Rally Schoolhouse, that's basically our membership area. You could go to herbrally.com/schoolhouse. And don't forget to use coupon code podcast at checkout to get your first 30 days for free. Then it's only $10 a month after that. So we try to make it as affordable as possible. All right, y'all. Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Take care.
Welcome to the Herbalist Hour. This is where community gather, merging the power of people and flowers, the sweet and the bitter to the salty, the sour. Umami, it's time for the Herbalist Hour.
Welcome back to the Herbalist Hour. Today we have two guests. I'm really excited to get to know Anna Claire and Sondra Hamilton more. Welcome to the show, you two.
Thanks so much for having us, Jason. We're happy to be here.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to get into a lot of your upcoming retreat in Peru, which I'm really excited to learn about. But first, we got to do some housekeeping. Let's do some introductions. Sondra, tell us who you are and what you do.
Yes, so thank you for having us once again. And my name is Sondra, and I am a herbalist. I'm an Ayurvedic postpartum doula. I work a lot with women doing womb health and healing. And I just do a lot of things. So to try and keep it short, that's what I really focus on is women's health and womb care and helping the mama, the new mama, go through that rites of passage after she gives birth. So really honoring that with some rituals that I do with that, different rituals I do in the rites of passage for the mom and the baby and the father. And then I make herbal medicine, and then we lead retreats to Peru. And so the last 4 years I've been living out of the US in Peru, and I lived a little while in Guatemala. And for me, my intention of living abroad was to really, 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 really connect in with indigenous cultures. Like for me, that's very important on my path, is that's what I yearn for. And I've gained a lot of wisdom just by sitting next to an elder, and there may not even be any communication because they speak a indigenous language, but just by sitting there and feeling them and observing them, it's like almost like you get transmissions. It's just really powerful. And so when I moved to Peru, my whole intention was to really work with all the inanimate objects, so to really deepen with the mountain spirits, and we can go more into that. But I was called to come back to the US to really just share more of my gifts, because it was a little harder it's not so much needed there. It is needed there, but when you live amongst a culture that already lives that way, it's already so embedded in the culture. I just felt it's really needed here in the Western world. And so I'm trying to just really put my wisdom into use here on the land that I was born in the Western world. So
That's so cool. And as I was telling you pre-call, I was like, shoot, I got to have Anna Claire and Sondra on the show separately just to learn even more about both of your stories, because I'm sure you have so much to share. And yeah, that's so cool, Sondra. Thank you for sharing all that. I do want to plug your website too. It looks like it's oshamaizeherbal.com. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, sweet. Well, as per usual, we'll leave links in the podcast show notes and the YouTube description, etc. But how about you, Anna Claire?
Yeah, thank you, Mason.
Yeah.
So I am also an herbalist. I'm a clinically trained herbalist with the Blue Ridge School of Herbal Medicine here outside of Asheville, North Carolina. And just like Sondra, I wear many hats in the herbal world and in life. So I do see clients one-on-one. I offer consultations. For a number of years now, I have been making my own herbal products, most specifically digestive bitters and herbal tea formulations. But I recently just kind of put that on the back burner as my offerings and focus have continued to grow in my herbal journey. So definitely a big focus right now is the retreats that we lead, which are primarily in Peru. We do those annually, and obviously we're going to talk a lot more about that. We do occasionally also offer women's retreats in Costa Rica, and then I also offer some classes around the Asheville area. So I still work with the Blue Ridge School of Herbal Medicine with Corey Pine Shane, who's the founder and director there. And I teach classes for the school, and then I teach classes around town. So I work with some other colleagues and friends of mine in the herbal world and in other healing arts. So I work with a friend of mine, Kelly Michaud, and we do sips and sounds. It's really beautiful studio space out in Marshall, and we usually do that quarterly, but people are asking for a lot more. So she has a really beautiful practice with sound healing, crystal sound bowls, and all other sorts of sound healing instruments. And she's a massage therapist. So we work together, and we start with like a really nice meditation, and I offer herbal tea blends that are sort of themed and suited to the occasion. A lot of times it's the cross quarters of the year with equinox and solstices and things like that. So definitely starting to get a little bit more out into the world, particularly in the Asheville area if I'm not in Peru. And definitely I'm always going to be making herbal products for family, for friends, for my community, and for clients, but I'm just not offering them in the retail stores or online anymore at the moment. So remains to be seen. It's ever evolving and unfolding.
And your website's Dancing Sage Wellness, which is where you could actually register for this upcoming retreat in Peru, which we're going to talk about. Also, pre-call, Sondra was guessing where I lived, and she said, "Do you live in Asheville?" Is that right, Sondra? And I'm like,
Yeah.
Asheville is really like the hotbed for herbalism, I would say. I'm from Eugene, Oregon. I live in Wisconsin now, but Eugene's also kind of a hotbed. But really, yeah, Asheville has it going on, that's for sure. And I'll say this: Corey Pineshane is going to be on the show in a couple months here, so I'm super excited to interview him. He was one of the first herbalism classes I took when I really started delving into herbalism. He came out and visited Eugene, and I was able to take a class with him. So really excited to get to know him more. But I don't know who wants to take this on. I always love hearing origin stories. So whichever of you want to tell us the story of how you two met, I'd be curious.
Yeah, well, it's actually a perfect segue. As we're talking about the Blue Ridge School and Corey Pine, Sondra and I actually met through the Blue Ridge School of
Oh, okay.
So we met in 2014, and we had both been accepted as apprentices in the program. So we signed on not only to be in class 2 full days a week, but also to show up another 2 full days a week to apprentice to Corey Pine and to the school. So we were there from like 9 to 6, 4 days a week for 8 months, 9 months, something like that. And Sondra had just moved to the area. I had moved to the area like a month before, and we just hit it off immediately. Became fast friends and herbal sisters. And she didn't have a car, so I was like giving her rides to class every morning. So we became close really quickly. And as Sondra's moved a little bit since then, and we really reconnected in recent years. We always kind of stayed connected, but we reconnected really around Peru
Hmm.
because we both had formed such a deep connection there over the years. And so we came together and both realized that we had this shared vision, that we didn't realize was shared, but we both had a vision for sharing our love for the culture and the connections that we had been cultivating in Peru. And neither one of us wanted to do it alone. So we decided to join forces. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, Sondra, but that's like the short version.
Yeah, I'll just add a little so I had done a very plant spirit based program before Corey Pines, and then got it. I was just so hungry for like, I just need more. I want more. I was so hungry for everything herbal related. And when I got accepted, I think there was like 3 or 4 other apprentices, and we just like clicked immediately because we kind of had like the mama energy. You know, we were a little
We're the
older.
caretakers of
We're the caretakers of the other apprentices. We kept everything in order. And that's when he had his school in the basement. And so we
Oh,
just
wow.
like we just holed up in the basement and like was doing the GMP and all that crazy stuff for his product line. And yeah, we kind of lost touch a little because I went on this crazy journey traveling and moved from Asheville. And then yeah, I was actually planning a Peru retreat on my own, and it fell through because I had an accident and I needed to heal. And I was like, wait, like I don't want to lead retreats alone. And then I was like, wait, Anna Claire, because I knew she had been going to Peru, and it was just like perfect. But the funny thing is that we planned our first retreat and it was scheduled to take place during the pandemic. So
Oh,
that
wow.
was like, we've had so many like tests. And, I had an elder tell me the other day, it was like, when you just see and something's supposed to come into fruition, you just have to persevere. And there's going to be so many tests and we've had a lot of tests. We've almost put it down several times, and we're at a point now where like, oh, okay, I think it's going. So
Totally.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's how we
like
met.
planning in the middle of the pandemic, and we're like, are we just absolutely crazy right now for still like trying to make this happen? So our very first one we had to reschedule, but we launched our first one in November of 2021, and it was so beautiful and just so meaningful and transformative for us, for all of our participants. And so we knew there was a reason for it all coming together, and that we needed to just stay the course and trust, that things would align as they were supposed to. So we're really grateful that it did and that it continues to.
So is this upcoming retreat, is this your fourth one then, or is this your third one?
This is our third one in
Oh,
Peru.
oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, we did do a women's retreat in Costa Rica. That was in March of 2022. So we had our second Peru retreat this past November in 2023, which was also just incredible, amazing. We shifted a few things from the first time, but we really are the focus remains the same, and then the details change, over time, and based on our connections and the people that we're working with, and all of that. So yeah, this
Awesome.
next one will be over the solstice. So it actually takes place over what's our summer solstice. It's June 15th through the 24th of 2024. And in Peru, that is their winter solstice, since they're in the southern hemisphere.
Mm.
But as a culture that is very much connected to the sun, as maybe what some would say is kind of a deity, but also just an element, a really powerful elemental power in their cosmovision and in their cultural beliefs and ancestry. It's a really, really special time to be in Peru because there's so many festivals and rituals and practices and fiestas and everything else that take place in that time. So we're really excited to be there and to be hosting a group there during this kind of penultimate time of the year in Peru.
I love the word penultimate. That's second to last. Okay. So, I mean, I guess we've kind of already gone over this, but I'd like to hear a little more like in detail. Why Peru? Why are y'all doing this retreat in Peru? What's the reason behind it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can speak first to that, and I'm sure because we're different personalities, we have different we each have a different relationship with Peru. But I started going to Peru the first time when I was 27, and then I would come back to the US, and it was just like I was hooked. Like I was hooked. It was like a soul home. And so I just kept going back, and I was always like, I want to explore other areas of South America. And then that just never happened. I just kept going back to Peru, back to Peru. But it's because I had a really deep connection with the land there and how the way of living. And for our retreats, I mean, why I really, why I feel like we chose Peru is because we very much work with the indigenous wisdom, and it's so embedded everywhere in the land. Like even when you walk on the street, it's there. Like even like the art, the engravings, and all the temples and all the sacred sites. It's like it's just has this energy where nothing has really been lost yet.
Mm.
And I look at it as like we're bridge people. We're here to like preserve it, and how we can preserve it is doing these retreats. And the retreats are more for sharing something that we love, that is so deep to our heart, and how we just see people come there time and time again, and they just have profound clarity. They have profound experiences to get on their path, or maybe they're not on their path, and they just have like big awakenings. Because I always say Peru is like fast evolutionary. So if you want to like skip some evolutionary steps in your consciousness, you can go to Peru for like a month and you can skip a few. And a lot of it's a spiritual tourism place, but a lot of people are traveling there for the power plants, for the ayahuasca and that experience. And we're more working with the elementals, and which is something that I feel like has kind of been lost in our generations. And so, yeah, Anna Claire can speak to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting for me. I often tell people Peru was never on my list. You know, I had all these like grandiose places I wanted to visit and do these certain things. And then I believe it's in 2015, my dad, or at the end of 2014, actually, my dad had a health scare and it was kind of a close call, and he decided it was bucket list time. And so in 2015, he called me one day and said, "Do you think that you and your husband can get off like a couple weeks, maybe next June?" And I was like, "Okay, sure." And he said, "I want to take the family to Peru. I want to go to Machu Picchu." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, that sounds cool, you know." So we went the following summer. So it was June of 2016. And we went with a big tour group, you know, of a bunch of people we didn't know. It was like maybe 20, 25 people in our group. We had a big bus and we hit all the hot spots. You know, we went to Lima, we went to see the Nazca lines, we went to Paracas, we went to Lake Titicaca, we did Cusco and Machu Picchu and the Sacred Valley. And it was amazing. And the thing that really came through for me when I was there was that we had all these places we were visiting, but it felt rushed to me because we were trying to do so much in like 11 days, you know? And so my husband and I immediately, we were like, there's something really, really special here. And we need to come back and we need to dig in and we need to learn more. We need to connect. We need to really connect. So it was like 8 months later, we came back to Peru and just took a week. We didn't have any plans or any intentions. We just wanted to connect. That was our main intention. So we went back to this really small village called Ollantaytambo, which is kind of the gateway to Machu Picchu. It's where the train station is, where people get on the train to then go to the town at the base of Machu Picchu, which is Aguascalientes. And we just stayed there for 8 days. I mean, we didn't have that much time to spend, but we knew we wanted to be there. And so just like Sondra said, if I could use that same word, I was hooked. And I just knew that I wanted to keep coming back for as long as I could, as long as it made sense, as long as it continued to align. And the more times I go, so ever since then, I've been going yearly, of course, with the exception of 2020. But I made up for it the next year and went like twice within 3 months of each other. So I just, made sure I got my time in. But, every time I go back, I connect further with the land. I connect further with the people and with the culture. And something that I really, really appreciate about my connections there and my time spent there is that it's very obviously not my own cultural heritage or bloodline or ancestry. But the teacher that we work with, which we'll probably talk about him a little bit later, but I met him my very first time there, and he since invited me to kind of walk a path with him and learn from him, and shared why it's so important for his culture to be sharing their teachings at this time in our world and the transitions that we're experiencing, as a society and as a culture at large. And so, yeah, it's so interesting. Like so many people have the same story of like they go to Peru and either they just never leave or they just
Mm.
keep going back over and over.
Sondra.
Yeah, there's a lot of us. And
Yeah,
like once that happens, we all like keep connecting more and more with each other. We're like,
It's
I
cool.
run into people and I see their weavings and I'm like, oh, that's from Chinchero, and we have a whole conversation about it. So Sondra and I just both had this really profound connection. I mean, like she said, also it's a soul home for both of us. It's a place that every time, I have an opportunity to travel or go somewhere, I'm like, I'm just going to go back to Peru.
Right, right.
More work to do there. There's
Yeah,
more that I want to connect with. And I
it's
think
cool.
the one of the really amazing things about it is that even if you just go to Peru because you want to go to Machu Picchu. It's such a powerful place, and
Mm.
so many of these temples and sites have such a long-standing connection with the people and with the culture that you can't help but feel it. Even if that's just not like your proclivity, like you can't help but feel it. And so for us, we didn't call each other and say, "Hey, let's lead retreats. That'd be a cool thing."
Right.
We were like, "You know what? I love Peru and you love Peru, and like we want to share this with people, so let's take people to Peru." So yeah, it just kind of came together in that way.
Just a quick break from the show to thank our presenting sponsor, Oshala Farm. Oshala Farm is a beautiful and vibrant certified organic herb farm based in Southern Oregon, where they grow and sell over 80 different plant species. The founders, Elise and Jeff Higley, have been longtime friends, so I highly trust their growing methods and ethics. You'll love the potency and vibrancy of all the herbs they have to offer. To learn more and purchase their herbs and other organic goods, head to oshalafarm.com. So thanks once again to Oshala Farm for sponsoring the Herbalist Hour. Now back to the show. Enjoy.
yeah, and Mason, I want to add to that. Like I had been going to Peru for several times, like working for organization where they lead plant retreats for like a month at a time. So I've been in the other side of retreats, like being of service and cooking and volunteering and working at like Zen centers for like holding space for a lot of people during retreats. And I've had a lot of experience. But I was always like, I want to lead a retreat, I want to someday get on the other side of that. And so, a big reason why there are a lot of reasons why I moved to Peru, but for me, when I create something or study something, I have to actually put myself in the actual environment. And so for me, I wanted to go network and really create a family unit of Peruvians um, that took me in and taught me a lot, and really just like start breathing the air there and letting the earth and my cells like take up the oxygen. It's just, it infuses your body in a different way because the soil's different, everything's different. Your whole body just becomes different. And yeah, just kind of just be in that environment and for us to really lead the retreats. And, Anna Claire's gone there a lot, visiting and spent months at a time. And for me, it's really important to just spend time in a place before I would lead a retreat there. So that's why our Costa Rica retreats haven't taken off as much, because we really want to network with the local people or the indigenous people. And Costa Rica is a little different. A lot of that's hidden. You can't just access it where you can in Peru. And so
Costa Rica, we like connect more with the land, and Peru is very, very much about the culture. And obviously, as herbalists, we incorporate a lot of herbal wisdom. We work with the plants, but like Sondra said, we're working mostly with like everyday connection with plants. It's a lot more daily connection, plant spirit medicine, how to just connect on a deeper level and work with that as a part of a daily practice.
First of all, aguas calientes, does that mean hot water? Is that like a spring or something? Or
It does. Yeah, they do have some thermal baths there.
okay.
Actually been to those. I know a few people who have, but
Oh.
there's some other ones that are maybe a little bit more tourist chosen, I think.
Just my high school Spanish is coming back to me. So the other question was, Anna Claire, you were talking about how you and your husband wanted to spend more time in the location so you could really get to know it intimately. just kind of speaking about the retreat, is that kind of what the experience you two are cultivating there in Peru, would you say?
It is definitely. I mean, we would love if we could all just go to Peru and be there for months at a time. But in a
Yeah.
realistic sense, like
Yeah.
that's not really how it works out for most of us, right? So we spend our retreats right now are nine days and nights. And we spend 7 of those nights in this town I mentioned,
Mm.
Ollantaytambo, which is literally my favorite town in the whole world.
Oh.
But I feel a really deep connection there, not only to the land, but to the Apus, which are the mountains, the spirits and beings that reside within the mountains in that culture. And we've both been there and formed connection with these mountains. We give offerings, we call them into our ceremonies and our circles and our daily practices that we each have individually. And it's a really special place. And we want to give people that sense of place where they can get there. You're traveling to high altitude when you go to the Sacred Valley of Peru, and you fly into Cusco, which is over 11,000 feet.
Oh my gosh.
And then we immediately, take people to Ollantaytambo, which is 2,000 feet lower. And when you're that high, every 1,000 feet makes a difference. So it's a little easier to acclimate there, but it's also considered the last living Inca village. And it's very small, very quaint. Everything is walkable. There's lovely restaurants. The place that we stay is on an organic farm. They have an organic farm to table restaurant there. And literally the people there at the hotel, they're basically our family now. Like we were just texting with the guest relations manager a couple weeks ago because it was her birthday when she and Sondra share a birthday. And we go hiking with
Awesome.
her and go to her uncle's land. And, it's just the connections really do mean everything to us. We know that it's not our native land. And so if we're setting foot and we're bringing people here, it's really important to us that we have real connections and we work with the same people, the same teachers, because of those connections. They're not just people that we hire.
Right.
They're people that are literally part of our family, extended family at this point.
Did you have anything to add to that, Sondra?
Yeah, I'll just add something briefly. So the Paco we work with, Paco means like medicine man or woman in the Quechua language. And he's our mentor and he's with us most of the time for these retreats. And, we were on a call with him and he did a free intro call. And, we're talking about the Apus, the mountain spirits. And so in Ollantaytambo, the town where we spend most of our time, we spend 7 days there, 7 nights. It's a very feminine mountain, Apu Veronica, Waka Wilka, which means sacred tears. And, there's not many many mountains that inhabit the feminine spirit. And, I've worked a lot with the masculine mountains in Peru, and it's a very different energy. And so just the fact that we bring people to that mountain, that we both have a relationship, it's a very gentle, feminine, she just wraps her arms around you and very brings a lot of grief out of you. And so our mentor was saying the mountains have feminine and masculine, the water has feminine and masculine, the wind. So when a wind hits you a certain way, you can tell if it's a feminine wind or a masculine wind. And these are all on this path. This is very crucial to know what energy you're working with, if you're working with a masculine or a feminine energy. And so we work with a lot of these teachings in our retreats. And our last retreat, there was some things that came up for some people where they didn't quite understand. And we have to reiterate over and over and over again. It's they talk and live from their heart. And so the path down from your mind to your heart can be a really long road. And so they teach from their heart. So we want to, in the Western world, our minds want to grasp for what does that mean? What does that mean? And their heart teachings, their heart transmissions, which is, it can be very uncomfortable for people. And it's profound though, because when you can get into the heart space, that's where the wisdom will start sticking. It will start sticking.
Yeah,
So.
it's a practice for sure. But once, it's a practice for all of us to just open our hearts and then to be able to open our hearts and receive something through that, through that way. And when we're in Peru, it's really good teaching. It's a really good practice to remind us in our kind of Western society, for lack of a better term, so much of everything that we do is mental. It's
Yeah.
all in the head, so it can take a little time to like sink down into that space. But it's a really beautiful thing when we can. And even if it is a challenge at times, just to be there and be open to the possibility of that. We have found with the people that we work with the participants who join us, it really opens so many doors and creates so many opportunities. And it's a really beautiful thing to witness.
I'm also suspecting that there's going to be like less cell phone usage on these trips too. Like what's the relationship to technology during this retreat?
Yes, we do have access to internet at the places we stay, but we're doing our ceremonies out in nature and we're gone most of the day. So it's beautiful because there's no phone usage, there's no distractions. There's really no distractions. If you go on the top of the mountain and you can easily get into nature, there's nothing that's going to distract you except for your mind, right? Like there's no grasping for the phone. And, I feel that there is a little bit of digital detox that happens during these retreats because people really just sink in and they're not, it's like they almost forget that they have a phone. They're like, oh yeah, I should message this person, So, and when you can get in that space, that's where a lot of your road can start opening.
Yeah, I'm just picturing like the feminine and masculine winds. I'm like, I wonder if I could get on that level. And I'm like, I bet I could, presuming I get rid of my phone, I really start to pay attention and listen to the teacher and everything. But were you going to say something, Anna Claire?
I was just going to echo what Sondra was saying a little bit, and that, there's definitely connectivity. Like people aren't going to not be able to reach home or anything.
Right.
Like have Wi-Fi at the hotel and things like that. But certainly, when we are in ceremony space, we do ask that phones are put away.
Yeah.
And of course, unless you pay for an international plan, you're not going to have service without Wi-Fi anyway. So it's a nice opportunity to just kind of have that tether when you need it, or if you need to connect with people at home and that kind of thing. But otherwise, to just kind of put that down and turn your focus elsewhere.
Absolutely. And then bring it back with you home, because this is probably a good time to like shift kind of some behavior. Who are you looking to bring on this trip? Who would be like an ideal candidate to take with you on this retreat?
Yeah, I think it's a really great question. Who is really meant to be on a trip like this? And the first thing I would say is that if it's something that you hear and there's some part of you that feels sparked, whether it's a little bit of excitement, whether it's a little bit of anxiety, whether it's a curiosity, listen to that, maybe follow that thread. What does that mean? Because if there's something about it that feels intriguing in any way, to me, that's a sign, it's a sign that there's more to explore. But on a more practical level, I would say anyone who's interested in going to Peru and interested in being sort of off the beaten path, because we don't really do the touristy things. We do offer a trip to Machu Picchu before the retreat begins, but it's not part of our actual retreat. We connect people with a dear friend of ours, Valerio, and he has basically his own spiritual tour agency in Peru. He's Peruvian. He's from outside of Cusco, and we connect people with him. And if they want to go to Machu Picchu, they can go with him a day ahead of time, just for a day trip. So people who want to be off the beaten path, who want to have a real connected experience, who want to connect with the culture, definitely people who are interested in plants and herbal remedies and plant medicines. I would say, one of the big pieces of being a part of this is to have some level of openness. And that's probably one of the key components. You don't have to have herbal experience. We had someone on our last trip in November who didn't know anything about herbs, had
Hmm.
never really considered themselves like on a particular spiritual path or had any experience with earth honoring practices, really came into it fresh, wide-eyed, and totally open, and joined the trip within 2 weeks of us actually going. So last minute, they were the last person to sign up and had an amazing experience and a profound journey and learned so much. They're now participating in the upcoming 6-week class series that we have with our teacher, Victor, and they're coming back to Peru with us this June. So if that says anything at all, I think that really speaks mountains, actually, because it's really just a willingness to open yourself to the experience.
How do they hear about it? The people that aren't in the herbal community, so to speak. How do they even hear about the retreat?
So that person in particular, at the time that they joined, I was working at a local tea house here in
Okay.
Asheville area. And with one of my friends that I offer herbal classes with, we taught a class about fire cider and making
Oh,
fire.
nice.
And so they found out, we taught it at the tea room, and they found out about it and came to that class. And then I mentioned the Peru retreat in that class, and they were like, well, I don't know what that's all about, but I think I want to do it. So it's really beautiful how it all unfolded. And Sondra, I'm sure maybe you have some other points to add to that.
Yeah, so you know, we call it inner alchemy, plants and practices of Peru. And I like that title that we've created because it's our inner alchemy that we have to forge, and the merging of the plants and this Andean wisdom, which is all elemental spirituality, to be honest. You could have a totally different spiritual path, or maybe you don't even have a spiritual path, but it's the elementals. Like, what's your relationship with the elementals? What's your relationship with the fire? And we start with that. We start with, let's connect with the fire, one night. And then the second night, we're connecting with the water. What's your relationship with the water, with the air? What's your relationship with Pachamama, the earth? And this is very crucial. And if we're disconnected, especially if we're disconnected from the earth, um, it creates a lot of confusion in our path and our bodies. And I like how we plan our retreats is that it could be open to anyone, to be honest. It could be open to somebody who doesn't know anything about plants, because maybe they want to work more with the elementals and the earth-based practices, or maybe someone signs up because they want to work more with the plants. So, and it's really beautiful to see when we get a group of people which direction they're gravitating towards. And some people are gravitating more towards like, oh, what are the mountain spirits? Or, oh, what's this plant? And it's cool because it's just a fusion of both. And they just they merge so well together, and they kind of dance together. Like, if you don't work with the elements, it's hard to work with the plants, especially if you're growing your own herbs in your own garden. You need to work with the elementals, and it's like this dance. And so, yeah, so we do a lot of like reintroducing people to these elements, because some people may have a fear of fire, maybe some people may have a fear of water, and it's like, it's more because they got disconnected, is that fear. And so we try and reconnect people to these sacred elements.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
I would just maybe tack on to that, if the word elements or elementals isn't landing for people, it's really mostly about just connecting with the earth, just putting our hands and feet on the ground and feeling what that feels like. Because so many times, whether it's our phones or our jobs, or we live in a city and it's like we have to drive somewhere, just connect with the bare soil, whatever it is. I think that there's kind of this resounding sort of idea now that a lot of what we're experiencing as a culture, and also on an individual level, with dis-ease and disharmony in our bodies and in our interactions with other people, it's a disconnect, right? And what is that original source of disconnect? And a lot of it is that we're disconnected from nature, and nature, we are nature.
Mm.
That's our inherent expression. And so the more that we're able to just revitalize that connection, because it's always there. It's just up to us to open up to it, right? Like nature's never going to be like, nah, you missed your chance,
Right, right.
so it's more just about plugging back into that original source, and remembering that it is always there for us, and that we always have access to it in some way, shape, or form, no matter where we are. And in Peru, it's just so abundantly available to us, that it's an amazing way to do it. And so we do connect with the earth, with the fire, with the waterfalls, in really profound ways that are fun and exciting, and people can kind of get down with,
Waterfalls.
Oh yeah.
I love it. Sweet.
Yeah, we
By
do
the way,
a beautiful waterfall hike.
I gotta say, I love that term, inner alchemy. Did one of you come up with that?
It was definitely a joint effort. Yeah.
That's dope. I love that
Like
so
a
much.
huge brainstorming session. This is what's happening in these retreats. So
Yes, and it's like it's like almost teaching people how to create their own inner alchemy, their own inner, like bringing the alchemy of the plants or the metals and the earth, and creating your own inner alchemy. And really just also, a lot of people, Peru can bring a lot up for people just being on that land. And so when people sign up, immediately when they sign up, the ritual and the ceremony begins, and there will be many tests and trials and we just always are like, oh, you're already in the energies of Peru the minute you say yes. And I'll what Anna Claire said about if somebody is just feeling like that soul calling, it's like when you have a soul calling, and if you've ever experienced that feeling, and I've had it many times, which is why I've traveled or had to move all over, because when I get these soul callings, like I can't, there's no, like, it's like, oh, okay, you got to go. Even if you don't want to go, it's like, you have to go, because your soul, there's something there for your soul. And so I always just, if anyone knows what that feels, I always just say, if you can't decide, you got to tune in somatically to what your body is saying, because sometimes it can be a strong urge that you really just have to go, because there's medicine there for you that you need to pick up. It's like a medicine bundle, and that medicine bundle can take you to your next step.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to travel far to get those bundles, and it can be like so inconvenient, but it can be amazing.
I will say that in everyone who has joined us on these journeys, like there's always at least a handful of people who are like, I don't really know why I'm here. I don't even know if I fully understand what I signed up for, but I just knew I was supposed to be here. And to me, that's really cool, because I don't want to get too like esoteric, but I'm a Virgo. I'm very practical. I'm like realistic. I've got my spreadsheets. When I hear somebody who like trusts their gut on something, and they're just like, I don't even know, but here I am, I'm doing it. I really honor that. Like that's huge. And I think that the more that I lean into that sort of response, or kind of like ping in my own system, the more that I learn from it, and to see that reflection in other people, and to have other people reflect that back to me. There's something to it. Like if you really feel something, there's not always a logical reason behind it. I'm learning that.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And Sondra, I gotta say, I think your soul is calling you to high elevation, because you moved to Denver. You have to be at that high elevation. I find that fascinating.
I know, and it's so funny, because I'm like, I need, like, I'm getting older, and I'm like, I just want to live near the water, and I need moisture, and I keep ending up in these like dry mountain, like, harsh environments. I'm like, what is going on? But yeah, I like the elevation.
Well, let's talk about some of the plants that we might see on this trip. I'd also be curious if you could talk about the sacred Mapacho, if I'm getting that right, tobacco ceremony. So can we talk about some of the plants for all those herbalists out there, if they might be interested in this retreat? Maybe what plants are you going to see on these hikes? And then I'd love to hear about the tobacco ceremony too.
Yeah, I might start with like two of my like favorite plants in Peru, and then let Sondra kind of riff off of that, and then we can talk a little bit about the Mapacho experience.
That'd be great.
Um, Definitely like the first two herbs that pop into my mind that are really specific to the areas that we're going to be in. There is an Andean mint called Munya, and it's in the mint family, and I believe that the botanical name is oh shoot, I just had it.
Is it a mentha?
It's a Mentha stachys
Oh,
mollis, I think.
hmm.
Um, I've tried to find it here in the States and I can't find it anywhere. But to me, so it definitely has that a lot of the qualities of so many other mints. But also it's a wild mint and it sounds kind of funny, but it has this like gamey quality to it.
Mm.
Like you taste it and you know it's a wild herb. Like it's not a cultivated plant. And it's really special. I'm not somebody who usually tends toward like peppermint or spearmint. You know, they're fine in formulations, but they're not my go-tos. But every time I go to Peru, I bring back like bags and bags of
That's
Munya.
cool.
And definitely part of that is like it just reminds me of my connection, and it's like a way for me to keep Peru connected to my own daily practices. When I come back, I always bring something back from the land, and it's usually Munya and some of the salts from the land and things like that. But it's also really ubiquitous in that any hotel you stay at, they always have Munya tea. And generally, it's just the dried herb. You'll see tea bags in a lot of places too, but the places that we stay, you usually just get like the dried stems and leaves of Munya, and you just put them right into your hot water. And a lot of times, it's also served with coca, the sacred coca leaf. Um, which coca could be like a whole other conversation in and of
Totally.
itself. But it's a really sacred plant in the Andes and Quero traditions that we work with in Peru, the coca.
Mm.
And so we definitely work with that on our retreats. We chew the leaves. There's coca tea. People don't have to ingest the coca if it's not something that they're drawn to. But certainly the teacher, the Paco that we work with, Victor, he works with coca as a divination tool. So he does coca leaf readings. We give coca leaves as offerings. We blow our prayers into the coca leaves. There's a lot of ways that coca is incorporated pretty much on a daily basis. The other herb that just immediately came to mind that I wanted to mention is in this tradition, a lot of times you see it more culinary use, but it's called wakatai. And it's Tagetes minuta. So it's in the marigold family and has a beautiful taste, a beautiful flavor, and it grows all around. They grow it on the farm where we stay, and they incorporate it into a lot of the meals. Some of the more well-known dishes of that region of Peru, some of the like really popular sauces have the wakatai in it. And some people call it black mint, but again, it's in the marigold family, not in the mint family. But it's definitely one that we'll eat and drink and pick and smell and you know all those things. There's so many though. There's a lot of
I
plants
bet.
that grow here. The elderberry there, which they call sauco. They're like giant elderberry sambucas trees. Sondra, what are some other ones that we definitely see a lot of? You want to talk about?
Yeah, so I was going to say Salco, elderberry,
Mm.
and it's really cool because when I've worked with different local herbalists there, they have knowledge that I don't know about the plant, or they use it in a different way. And I was always like, yeah, you use the flower for the allergies, and the berries are more for your immunity. And they never would use the flowers, they're like, oh, really? As a tea. And so I love that, the wisdom I have, I can share with them, and then they use it for a different way. But rue, of course, rue is a very special plant, and it's always very popular in South America and Central America because it's like really, it's the main staple for clearing heavy energies, and they use it in ceremony a lot. So, and it's beautiful because when you go to the market, every woman, mamita or seller has like rue by their at their stand, whatever they're selling, and if they're selling meat or they're selling veggies. And the roux is so that everything stays fresh. So like all through the day, because the meat isn't refrigerated, and the clothes sometimes get a smell, and whatever they're selling. And it's also like helps bring abundance and people to them. So like during the day, you'll see them like hitting their products with like a bundle of roux to like bring that energy, like cleansing. But I have a lot of favorite plants in Peru, but I work a lot with the wild rose there. They call it Hampi Rosa. And it's a different type of rose where they're smaller and they grow wild there, and they're so fragrant. Like they're so fragrant, and they use them for a lot of rituals for like when there's a newborn baby, the grandmother will pick all the wild roses and bring it to the mother, and the baby will bathe for like a week in wild roses. And that's
beautiful.
It protects them and keeps them protected in their first few moments being born. And but one plant I really love is I would say Ariane. Ariane is it's like a shrub, and it's in the myrtle family, but the smell of it is so unique. And they make essential oil out of it as well. And
does it grow abundantly?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, and it grows where where we're going to stay in Ollantaytambo, and we use it for our agua frita class. And it has like a smell like myrtle, or the laurel. It's from the laurel family, so yeah, it just has like beautiful smell. And yeah.
Was that called Adeon?
Ariane, yeah.
Adeon and the wild rose sound like it's worth the price of admission alone.
Yeah. Yeah. The Ariane is almost like, to me, it reminds me of like bay leaf mixed with some sort of citrus or something.
Oh, I love bay.
Really special. Yeah, we put it in our agua florida mix last time, and it was like, this is what like makes it. It was really nice.
Yeah.
Accent.
Yeah. Did one of you? Sorry, go ahead, Sondra.
Yeah, I was just gonna say there's a lot of plants and different ways that they use them there, and it's just we could go forever on this. So
I bet.
I think I'll just leave it at that, because I'm like, oh, those are my top plants. So, but if Anna Claire wants to talk about the Singa ceremony, the Mapacho.
That'd be great.
Yeah. One more thing I want to just say about the plants is that obviously staying on a farm, like there's a lot they actually do cultivate on the land there, and that's grown there. You'll see muña, you'll see calendula, you'll see the rue, you'll see fennel and dill. There's so many different herbs that just grow literally right outside your doorstep. So we'll have a lot of access to these fresh plants. We'll be seeing them, connecting with them on a daily basis. Having them in our meals. Most of the meals at this place in Ollantaytambo, they have edible flowers like on all the meals. So that has like calendula leaves and calendula flowers and borage flowers, along with some others. But
like the tagetes is what you said too?
Yeah. The
marigold.
Yeah. And that's the leaf that they normally use. It's so delicious. And then for this upcoming retreat in June, we are also going to be doing a plant walk at one of our friends' homes. He has a garden at his home, and he is a native Ollantaytambo. I don't even know what you would actually say, but he's from Ollantaytambo. And he is going to lead us around his garden and talk about the plants that he has there and how he works with them, why he's chosen those plants to have around his home. His mother passed away a few years ago, but his mother was a medicine woman, a curandera in that tradition. And he said that all growing up, people would just visit their house all the time, and she would do healings on them. So he learned a lot from her. He speaks like 4 languages, but he knows, of course, all the Quechua names, which is the ancestral language of that area, and then the Spanish, and then also the English. So it's a really special opportunity to learn about the plants that grow there and how they work with them through someone who has grown up, in that tradition. So we're super excited to work with Jose and to learn the plants through his eyes and perspective. But yeah, I can speak briefly to the Mapacho if that's a good time to do
Yeah, I
that.
was just when I was looking at the website, that stood out to me, so I was just kind of curious to hear, yeah, even just a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful tradition and way to work with the sacred tobacco medicine. So, as many people probably know, tobacco is one of the original sort of sacred plants of the Americas. So, North America, Central America, and South America. And so, in South America, the tobacco that grows there that they work with mostly on a ceremonial basis is called Mapacho. And it's a lot stronger than a lot of what we find here in North America. It is the Nicotiana species, or I'm sorry, genus. And the way that we work with it is actually in the tradition of the north coast of Peru. And so I was trained in this tradition. It's been probably about 9 years ago now. And so a lot of people ask if it's like hape or something along those lines. And it's very different from hape, which if people aren't familiar with, it's like a powder that's kind of like blown usually through a bone or some other instrument into the nasal cavity. So the way that we work with Mapacho is as a tea. And we make this tea. Sondra and I make it the night before ceremony. We, of course, like sing our songs into it. We use our rattles. We blow the Mapacho smoke into it. We give intentions. Sometimes we also incorporate hydrosols or flower essences, depending upon the energies of the group. And we make it into a tea. And it's pretty dilute. Like the tea itself is not very strong, and we use a very small amount of it. So we put it in, of course, a tincture bottle because we're herbalists. What else would we put it in?
Awesome.
We put in like a little tincture bottle, and the way that it is delivered is we have these shells. They're actually channeled whelk shells. So they're small shells, usually about 2 to 3, between like 2 and 4 inches, and each time we deliver this Mapacho medicine, it's about 2 droppers full, so about 2 milliliters. And then it's inserted into the nose and goes back down through, and it gets swallowed, but again, it's 2 mils, so it's really not much at all. But the way that we work with it, and in this tradition, it's to really ground, is to ground the spirit, to ground the body, to really forge this connection that we keep talking about with ourselves and with the earth. And the process that we go through, we ground, and then we also we clear any heavy energies, any stagnant energies, what in Peru and Quechua they refer to as hucha. So they don't really look at it as like positive or negative energies. It's just like what's heavy, what's holding you down or holding you back, and how can we lighten that and just kind of help it to move on out so that we can continue on our path in a good way. So we work first to clear those energies after we ground, and then we call in. So we're calling in the pure light energies, the clear energies, the things that we want to call into our life more. And in Peru, this a lot of times one of the words that they use to refer to it is the sami, which is the light energy. So there's like the hucha that we get rid of and the sami that we call in. And so it's a whole ceremony and process. But it's we do it at a particular time in our retreat. So everything, we consult with Victor, our Paco, we consult with the Coca. We look at the astrological goings on of the times that we're there, that we choose to have our retreats. And in all of this, we plan out the order of our ceremonies in a very particular way. So the tobacco, the Mapacho, which is called singa in Quechua actually means nose, because that's the delivery route for this particular ceremony. But it's at a point in the retreat where it's for grounding, for really grounding in before we move on to some of the other ceremonies and activities that happen in the later days of the retreat. So it's really special. People find it very powerful. I also find, and people have shared with us, that it's a really nice practice for finding your vulnerability and being able to lean into that, because
Mm.
we state these things aloud in front of the group, and we usually go 3 at a time. Sondra and I start, we lead everybody, we walk everyone through, we're rattling the whole time while people are raising the medicine. But it's an opportunity to state what's not serving you and what you want more of in your life. And to be witnessed by that is a very, very powerful thing, to hold space for other people, and then also to allow, yourself to witness other people in those vulnerable moments.
Everything's so thoughtful. I love it. That sounds so powerful. What an amazing ceremony. Why don't we shout out Victor, Julian, and Dora? I want to hear more about these folks who are helping with the retreat. Can we kind of go in order and like talk about each one and how you know them and everything? Sondra, you want to lead that off?
Yeah, so I'll start with Julian. You pronounce it
Julian,
Julian.
of course.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. Like I
It's
said, I
okay.
took Spanish. I know. Okay, Julian.
No, it's okay.
Respect.
In the US, it would maybe be that. But so Julian, I actually met about 5, 6 years ago, and that's when I got a strong calling. I saw a picture of this mountain in Peru. And when I saw the picture, it was like a soul calling. I was like, oh gosh, are you serious? Here we go. I'm like, I have to go to that mountain. And I was like, I have to go to that mountain. Like, I have to go back to Peru. And so I went to the mountain, and I had met this lady. Somehow I met her. I was doing some ceremony with her, and I messaged her and was like, do you know anyone that I could trust to serve me some wachuma while I go up to Asangate? The mountain is called Apu Asangate. And wachuma is a San Pedro sacred cactus medicine. And so she connected me with Julian. And so I messaged Julian, and he actually takes people up to Asangate because there's hot springs up there. And he works with people in the hot springs because it drives it deeper into your tissues. And how he works with it's a big rebirthing. So you get in the water and you're going through this whole birthing process. Like sometimes you actually feel like you're back in your mother's womb, and any traumas, you're healing that. And he works a lot with women that have been sexually abused in his community, because it's actually really common in Peru where women get sexually abused. It's really a problem, right? And so he works with women where he'll take all these women up there and they work with wachuma and work in the hot springs. And so, here I met him, and the minute I met him, I just was like, he was just like a soul brother. Like I felt so safe with him as a woman, and he just held space. He has a very calm, gentle energy. And so, yeah, and then when I moved to Peru, I just kept connecting with him more and would send people to him. And he harvests his own medicine. He makes his own medicine. He studied with the plant, and he, his medicine is really beautiful. And he was always somebody who would always just be like, yeah, keep drinking. And he would give me his medicine. And so I built a relationship. Once I moved there, I was able to build a relationship. And, people would reach out to me like, hey, can you take me to Asangate? And I want to try the medicine. And then I'd be like, okay, yeah, I'll take you there. And then I would bring Julian along, and we would do a ceremony. And just, yeah, he's like a brother. He's like family. And I always tell people, like, I trust him with my life. Like he just knows how to hold space, especially for women, and where maybe some women may not feel safe on the medicine around certain men if they have a lot of wounding around that. And for me, it's really important for people to feel really safe when they're on the medicine. And of course, Anna Claire and I guide. We all three work together guiding our group. So that's Julian. I mean, he was born about an hour up in the mountains outside of Cusco, and he comes from a farming community. So he grows all his own food. Like farming is embedded in his DNA. Like his family's own has land, and they farm their whole life on like campesinos. And so he has a lot of wisdom, and he's also his wife is from Canada, so he works in
Cool.
tourism, so he also is very educated on like the Western mind, and or just like he knows what people come with sometimes, and he's traveled, and he he works in tourism, so he speaks Quechua, Spanish, and English, so he speaks 3 languages. And so yeah, we use him for our Wachuma ceremony, and that's how I met him. And then yeah.
I've never even met Julian, and I already love him.
Oh yeah, he's
Sounds
amazing.
awesome.
Yeah, he's such a it's funny because when I first went to Apu Asangate, it's such a powerful mountain. And then I was like, I'm going to go to this mountain and I'm going to drink medicine, which it could have probably been 2 separate trips. But, I'm somebody who just goes straight to the vision. And yeah, the rest was history. I was hooked. I was hooked on that mountain, and I really wanted to collaborate with Julian. And yeah, so.
Love it.
Yeah,
Well,
just to be clear too,
yeah.
our Wachuma is not at Alcengate, and it's not in the water. So if people heard that and they're like, wow, this sounds really crazy. We
Right.
work with Julian. We do our Wachuma ceremonies outdoors in nature, and we go to this really special sacred site, and there's never anybody there, and it's a really, really beautiful place to just like literally be on the top of a mountain in sacred ruins with a small group in this amazing setting. Yeah, Julian is a really, really amazing holder of space. So we're grateful to have him as part of our group.
Before we move on to Victor, I guess I have to ask, do you plan on doing this trip for years to come? Is this just going to be like an annual thing, or how do you see that?
It's our vision.
Okay. Because I'm like, I'm not going this year. I'll just be straight up, but I kind of want to go at some point.
Yeah,
So maybe count me in 2027.
Yeah, I mean, it's our vision to keep them
That's cool.
going. And
Yeah.
like Anna Claire said, like every time we end a retreat, we have like a coca divination with Victor, and we just look at like some dates, and it's always guided us really well.
That's cool.
And I would like to say it's spirit led. It's like we can't push things if it's not meant to happen. And but yeah, I feel the mountains have our back for sure. They want us to keep doing this. They're like, I feel like they would almost be angry if we don't. Like, oh man, they're gonna like, I'm gonna have to like pay some penance or something to the mountain spirits.
But yes, dear listener, if it's calling you, definitely look into this year, coming up, dancingsagewellness.com, if I got that right. And right at the top, you'll see on the what do you call it? The banner, retreats. Just click on that and you'll see the Inner Alchemy Plants Plus Wisdom of Peru. But yeah, I would like to hear about the other couple of folks. How about Victor and Dora?
Yeah, so they're all kind of a huge integral piece of our retreats, and intertwined with one another. So Victor, you've heard us mention his name a couple of times now. So he's a Paco, which, as Sondra said, is the term used in Quechua for a medicine man, a medicine woman. Maybe what some people would refer to as a shaman, but that's not really the word that they use there, and it's a little bit different than the kind of common understanding of that word from a different tradition. But Victor is Victor Chura Quispe, and he is from the Quero Nation, which is this very, very high mountain community outside of Cusco. And it's a community that's really well known for the Pacos. There's many medicine people and healers that are within that community. And it's only been, and I don't know the exact number, but I'd say it's maybe been in like the last 50 to 60 years that many people from this community have started to come down from those mountain communities and into Cusco and the Sacred Valley to disseminate their teachings, to share their teachings with the world in a time of great transition. And I think we can all kind of recognize that we are in a time of transition in our world in so many different ways, with so many different world events and climate and everything else. And so they've come down from these communities because they knew this is part of the prophecy. It's, we won't get into it now, but if you want to go and check it out, I would recommend looking up the prophecy of the eagle and the condor. The condor is a sacred bird in the Andean cosmology, and the eagle is often referred to as like North America. So it's this merging of North and South America and the meeting of these cultures and these minds and these traditions to forge a better way forward. So Victor is our holder of this space and the Paco that we work with. I met Victor in my very first trip to Peru. I was with this big group, and there was sort of this optional event to like meet a local shaman. And, I was like, this is going to be pretty cheesy. It's probably just for tourists. But the second that I walked into the room and I met Victor, I knew that he was a real force, and that there was a reason I was there and a reason that we were meeting then. And so I've worked with him ever since. That's been, I guess, about 8 years ago now. And what, Victor works again with these mountain spirits, with the elements, with nature. Essentially, like if people know anything about animism, it's this idea of, every living being being a sentient energy. And that includes the rocks, the stones, the mountains, all the different elements. And so that's how Victor works. And he works with the coca. He works with Pachamama, Mother Earth. He works with the Apus, the mountain spirits. And he holds beautiful ceremony. A lot of the ceremonies that we do with him are offerings to the earth, to just thank Mother Earth for holding us, for nourishing us, for providing for us. And we give prayers, we give offerings. We build these really beautiful mandalas called despachos or jaiwariquis or ofrendas, and we give them to the earth, and afterwards we burn them in a fire. So there's a lot of the elemental connection there. But he's really beautiful in ceremony. He's a very good space holder. But one of the things that I really appreciate most about Victor is that he has this amazing childlike energy. And there's not ever been a time that I've been in Victor's presence and hung out with him that we're not all singing and dancing and laughing, like pretty much the whole time. We're in ceremony and things are like ceremonial, and then afterwards we're playing, where he greets us with the dance, and he's just really fun to be around. And he reminds us that even though sometimes this work or this path in life can be serious, we don't have to take ourselves so seriously. And that's a really good reminder for me sometimes. And so in recent years, Victor has been also incorporating his wife into his teachings, which is really special. Not a lot of times do you work with a Paco who comes with the beautiful masculine and feminine counterparts. And that balanced energy. And so most of the time when we're working with Victor now, his wife, Celia Samata Apaza, is with him, and she is also a Paco. She actually comes from a really well-known lineage of Pacos in this tradition, and her grandmother is Mama Maria. Mama Maria is the oldest living Alto Mesayoc, which is like, it's not so much a hierarchy, but it's like the kind of top Paco in this tradition. And she's in her 90s now, and she's still participating in retreats and leading ceremonies and going strong. So yeah, talk about a force. Like, it's a really beautiful lineage. And so Victor and Celia have both trained with Mama Maria as well. And then Dora is our dear sister, Dora Fronek. She is from the States. She moved to Peru many years ago, and she is a fantastic translator. She has worked with Victor and with Celia and with a number of other Pacos over the years. So she really understands these teachings. She understands what they're about, and she knows how to translate these teachings in a way that the wisdom doesn't get lost, that it's not just a basic translation, that you can still receive the magic and sort of that innate quality that comes with these teachings. So we're really fortunate to have her with us when we work with Victor and with Celia.
That's so cool. Did you have any follow-up thoughts on that, Sondra? Or
yeah, I just wanted to throw in. I mean, Victor is amazing, and it's funny because I met him during the pandemic. Like, Anna Claire had talked about him, and I was working with a different Paco at the time, and then he came to the town I was living in, which isn't far from Cusco, and then did a coca reading with him, and then I was like, oh yeah, like he's the one. It was just funny because Anna Claire had always talked about him, and then our paths just crossed. I met him. I didn't have to plan it. It just happened. And then Dora had already known for a little while, but she's from Wisconsin, so I just wanted to throw that out there.
Woo woo.
But she started studying with them, and she knows a lot. She knows a lot. And, it's one thing anyone can, like you can translate. We could hire any other translator, but it wouldn't come off the same way because she studied the wisdom and she knows it. So like it's a different, because she knows a lot of the Quechua words. So it's a different type of translation that needs to happen from sometimes Quechua to English. And then it's because she studied these practices. There has to be a certain energy and tone behind when you translate, opposed to just, it's very good to be able to translate what you're studying. So yeah, she's amazing, and we love her. So
yeah, I would add, Dora's definitely a medicine woman in her own right as well, and she's an acupuncturist and Chinese medicine practitioner. So she's really a wealth of knowledge, and she's not solely a translator. She brings so much wisdom and experience to the table. So it's a really nice synergy.
So I'm sorry, Dora's from Wisconsin, is that what I heard? But she lives in Peru full time now?
Yeah, she moved to Peru about maybe 5 years ago to study deeper with these healing practices, because she used to be in the Native American traditions and be a pipe carrier. And so she doesn't just translate like in Peru, she's treating people and doing acupuncture and massage work. And but yeah, she just left the US and went there and had a call to study with them. And she lived with them. Like when you live with them, that's next level. When you when you're living with the Pacos and the indigenous elders, it's like you're learning a lot when you live with them in their home. So yeah,
she comes back to Wisconsin. Maybe I could interview her in person or something.
Yeah, they did. Cool. They went there. She went there last summer. They're starting she brought another Paco and they did. So I'll let you know. Yeah.
That's rad. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, this has been really fun. You two are both such great storytellers. I feel like this whole time I almost kind of went on a journey in a way. I'm just like picturing everything in my head, and this has just been really cool. So why don't we wrap up with just like a couple closing questions, and but feel free to send the audience wherever you want to register for the retreat. I would love that. But again, I think the audience is going to really love this episode, just because like me as the host, I'm like in the conversation, but I'm just like kind of following along. Like, wow, this just sounds like such a magical experience. It sounds so cool. But why don't we wrap up? And again, we'll have to have you both back on the show, solo episodes, go deep into your story. I'd love to hear that. But just to wrap up this show, why do both of you love being an herbalist? And Sondra, why don't we start with you?
For me, I love it because, well, I feel like I have a responsibility. Like the minute the plants hooked me in my late 20s, the plants have always been speaking to me. But when they really, 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 really hooked me in, and I was like, oh, they hooked me, I now have a responsibility. That's cool. Because I've built a relationship. And it's almost as if I don't walk this path or share this wisdom, then I'm not serving the world and how I should be serving. Like that, I have to be in service to the plants. That's what I always say. And so I'm in service to them first, and they help me share this wisdom. And yeah, I also just love, like, I had an undergrad in photography, and I was like, I don't want to do that. And I was always so scared to like think I could make a career out of like studying the plants. And it's like, well, it's happened, and somehow I've kind of made a career. I mean, I have a lot of other side jobs, but what it did for me is opened all these other doors. Like then I studied Ayurveda, and then And then I studied in Mexico, the Aztec tradition of like Temazcal, Limpios. And so it just like it just keeps opening all these crazy doors that I would have never imagined when I first signed up for the herb program. Like
The herb program.
12 years ago, some
I love
herb
that.
program that I signed up for. And it's taken me on a wild journey. I mean, it's really cool when you go to herb school or you meet people in herb programs. Everyone has complete, like, they're having a spiritual experience too. And
100%.
a lot of people don't realize, but they are having a spiritual experience as well, because it just opens up
Absolutely.
different parts of your consciousness. So, yeah. That's what I love.
I love all of the different points you laid out. And I just got to like double down on what you said. When I went to Columbine School of Botanical Studies, they don't push it as like a plant spirit medicine course, but afterwards, you know, you're like, holy shit, I just had a spiritual experience. That was amazing.
Yes.
So
Yeah, like people, you get full on awakenings, even if you go to like a botany type school, because you're working with these spirits. You're working with spirit. Yeah. So Anna Claire probably has similar experience.
Yeah, Anna Claire, you're up next.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I came to the plants through my experiences and my interests in kind of what started as working with animals, and then also being surrounded by parents and family members who are in healthcare. So I've always been really interested in health and our well-being and like what that means and how we show up to that in our lives. But I first kind of really interacted with the natural world with animals. My degree, I have a bachelor's of science in marine biology. So that career never really took off. I was one of the 5-year-olds that wanted to be a seal doctor and dolphin. And I started down that road and still love it. You know, it was really challenging to really forge a career in the way that I wanted to with that. But, you know, I went through all these different iterations of school and these trainings. And, you know, at one point I wanted to be, you know, I wanted to like go to, what is the word I'm trying to think of? Like medical school, right? I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be in emergency medicine. And then I decided that maybe that was a little too much. And maybe I was going to follow in the footsteps of my mom and be a nurse. My dad was a respiratory therapist and he's retired now. My stepdad like worked in surgery units. So I had all of these people around me that were doing something in healthcare. And so that really spoke to me, just, I think a lot of times on a subconscious level, but it was also like something that surrounded me in my childhood and growing up. But none of those paths really ever felt quite right. And when I was finishing up my undergraduate degree, I took a course in nutrition as an elective. And I was amazed at everything I was learning about how what we put in our bodies interacts with our bodies on like a physiological level and also on a mental level and on an emotional level. And I got really into nutrition. So I then went to graduate school for nutrition. But it kind of turned out the same way. I was like shadowing people in hospitals and I was like, this is not it. It's still not it. I don't know what it is. Like, I'm really interested in this topic, but the way that I'm experiencing it, it's just not my calling. And then it was a few years later that I even first heard of herbalism. Like at that point in my life, I hadn't even heard of herbalism. And this was like in my mid to late 20s. And I first started hearing these little tidbits about herbalism and plant medicines. And then there was like, you know, new co-ops and herbal or like grocery stores that had herbs around me. And I started just experimenting on my own and discovered that this was a thing. It was like a path and a trajectory that I could take. So, you know, the rest is history. I went to the Blue Ridge School. I did that initial program where I met Sondra. I went on to do their clinical program. I worked with the American Herbalist Guild, and I just really immersed myself in the world of the plants in a lot of different ways. And it's just something that I know will always be a part of my life now. You know, I've had a lot of different jobs, I've done a lot of different things, but this is something that is innately part of me. And I feel so connected to it. And the more I discover on this path, the more I want to discover, the more I want to learn. And when I share it with people, I know that it's the right thing because it lights me up. And I see that light reflected in the faces of the other people that I'm talking to, because it's not about me. It's about nature. It's about the plants. It's about something that's available to all of us. It's our birthright. And what I really love about it is, like Sondra said, it does feel like a responsibility. This wisdom has been shared with us, and now we're the bearers of the torches to like march along and share this with other people, anyone who's open and interested. But one of the things that I really love about herbal medicine and the plant path is how empowering it can be to just have this wisdom that's been around through so many different cultures, through so many different time periods, and to know that it doesn't go away. Like, it's always there, and we have access to this, and we can be empowered to connect on a deeper level and to heal ourselves from within by forging deeper connections with the plants and with the world around us. And that to me is so inspiring. And it just like really excites me. It moves me on so many levels. That's why I love being an herbalist. Yeah.
Yeah, I resonated with so much of that. That was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Wow, I was gonna say let's end there. That was a mic drop. I love it. But why don't you either of you or both of you, make a send folks to where you want to send them to register, and kind of just any closing thoughts about the retreat, etc.
I do want to mention we have a 6-class series that starts February 20th, but it's going to go until April, but you can sign up for individual classes. But Victor's going to be teaching online, nice. And we're learning about their practices, carrying a mesa, what are these sacred stones, what is the coca plant, and all that information you can sign up on Anna Claire's website, dancingsagewellness.com. And we're starting an IU. IU means community. We're starting like a community, and the community is going to grow and grow. And it's like the eagle and the condor merging. So it's like a school that we're creating. And Victor and his wife Celia are teaching, and then Dora helps with the translation. And we're all just, if people are kind of like, oh, what's this retreat thing? Then they can actually meet Victor through Zoom and feel, sometimes you want to feel people's energy out. And we do a free 30-minute call for people if they feel they're interested, just so they can feel us out and see if they want to be in Peru with us. And so all that can be found, the retreat, on dancingsagewellness.com. And this little school we're creating is a good way for people to like dip their toes in and see if they do want to come to Peru. So yeah.
That's a great idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just wanted to say that we do have the recordings available. So, if this comes out after the fact, or if people listen after the fact, even if it's over, like Sondra said, it goes through April 30th.
Okay.
But we have the recordings for all of the classes. And so you can sign up for each class individually, and you can always, retrospectively listen and watch the videos from previous classes, if that's something that is of interest. And so they're all available. You can connect in. The group that's forming is, it's really lovely to see it all coming together. And it's just really special for us with the connections that we have and that we want to continue to cultivate. I just get so excited when we host these classes. We did this free intro class last week, and it's just like we see Victor there, and immediately he's like smiling and waving his hand, but he just lights up on the call. And it's just really special to like feel that energy and to be able to connect with it, even from here in North Carolina, or from where Sondra is in Colorado, or wherever you are in the world. It's these are really nice ways to just kind of start to learn about the teachings without having to make the huge commitment of going to Peru. So there's options,
And remind me again, are these classes available on Dancing Sage Wellness? Is that where they are?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All links will be in the podcast show notes. Was there something else you were going to say, Anna Claire?
No, that's really it. Those are the two main things that Sondra and I have coming up. These classes online, and then the retreat in June. We do still have some spaces available for the retreat. So we'd love to have anyone that feels that call join us.
You two are awesome. This has been so much fun. And like I said, I just like felt I went on a journey with you two. So that was amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mason. It's really
Appreciate
an honor to be.
absolutely.
Yeah,
What?
really. Yeah, I'm just grateful that you're doing this podcast and
It's fun.
asking us to be on here, and we'll be in touch. Yeah.
That'd be amazing. And like I said,
Okay.
we'll get both of you back on the show for little solo deep dives. But with that, we'll wrap it up and say goodbye. Thanks y'all for listening. Thanks to Amanda for editing, and we'll see you next time.
Okay. Bye.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Yeah, thank you. And that's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the Herb Rally podcast. If you'd like to hear more from us here at Herb Rally, we now have a text message community, believe it or not. Basically, it's just updates from us. We send about 1 to 7 texts per week, notifying you about new events, videos, courses, podcasts. You get the idea. It's pretty much like our email newsletter, just in text form. So if you'd like to receive text messages from Herb Rally, just text JOIN, that's JOIN, to the number 541-256-2895. Again, that's JOIN to number 541-256-2895. And to stop receiving texts, that's easy too. Just text STOP to the same number. It'll opt you out immediately. Okay, thanks again for listening. Have a great rest of your day.